All right, hello Year 12. Look at this. It's a video. We're going to plan a Trojan Women essay together. And the reason we're going to do this is because it's your holiday homework in these strange times that we live in. So I'm going on to our Compass page, and you can see that our lesson plan for the 23rd of March says your tasks for English are going to be to produce 3 beautiful, polished essays about Trojan women. So this video is going to hopefully help you plan those essays. So the first thing we're going to have to do is get a prompt to write to, because unless you know what the prompt is, you don't really know what you're going to be writing. So I've got my document here, and this is where we're going to be doing our draft work. So draft essay document. Exclamation mark, because we're excited. Okay, now let's find ourselves a prompt by looking in our Trojan Women study guide, study booklet, which of course you can find in the resources tab of Compass. So I'm going to download that now, and we're going to use that to get ourselves a prompt. We're going to find the prompts on the very last page, so I'll download that now. Okay, so I've downloaded the document and I've found the practice essay topics here. They're at the very bottom of the Trojan Women booklet, and there's a lot of them. There's 22 here in total that we've given you. Of course, you can write on an unlimited amount of essay topics for this play. But for the work that you're going to be doing over these holidays, writing your 3 essays, it's probably recommended that you pick from this list of prompts here, because they're all pretty similar to what we expect will be on the exam at the end of the year and what was on the exam at the end of last year. And the one that I'm going to choose to do the plan for this is this third one here. It is the innocent and powerless who are most affected by events in Trojan Women. Do you agree? So I'm going to highlight that, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into my draft essay document. And there it is. Okay, and I'm also going to make that bold and large, because it's important. Okay, so now we've got our prompt. Now we need to plan the essay structure. And to do that, once again, we're going to go into the main Women of Troy study booklet. So let's head back there now. All right, so I've taken us to page 18 of the Women of Troy booklet, and you can see here we've got this little heading that says addressing many different prompts with a master essay structure. So realistically, you need to be ready to address any essay prompt, but this play, Trojan Women, tends to lend itself to 3 types of prompts. They are prompts about who or what is to blame for the destruction of Troy, prompts that ask you to write about the fate of the characters in the play, and prompts that ask you to write about the nature of war as it is described in the play. And what we've got here is a kind of master essay structure that can be applied to any of these 3 prompts. So we've got to decide, first of all, is our prompt about blame, fate, or the nature of war? Let's have a look. It is the innocent and powerless who are most affected by events in Trojan Women. Do you agree? So they're affected by events in Trojan Women. I am going to go out on a limb and say that this is a blame essay. Who's to blame for the effect on the innocent and powerless characters in Women of Troy? So there we go. We've decided it's a blame essay. I'm going to bold that, make it large. I'll even make it blue. There we go. Okay. Now we need to know what's going to go into our 4 body paragraphs. And again, we're going to use the Trojan Women booklet. So our body paragraph 1 is going to be about the capricious nature of the gods in the play, the way that they just change their mind for seemingly no reason at all, and the terrible effect that this has on the characters in the play. Our body paragraph 2 is going to be about the women in the play, how they argue amongst themselves, but does this help them in any way? I don't think it does. And body paragraph 3 is going to be about how the desires of men have resulted in the suffering of the women of Troy. And body paragraph 4 is going to be about the overall senselessness of war and the way that Euripides manipulates genre conventions to convey this to his audience. So this is our master, bare bones structure, very bare bones. We've got a little bit more detail for you a bit further along. This is on page 19. There's also a disclaimer that we've put here, which says that though we're going to give you this master structure, if you choose to use part of it, if you choose to use none of it, if you choose to use all of it, that's fine. It's a recommended structure, but it's not enforced. So if you think that your ideas are better than mine, great, please use them. But for the rest of us, let's have a look at the detail that we get here in the blame section. So, body paragraph 1 about the capricious nature of the gods. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it into my planning document. If I can bring it up, there it is. Okay. So here we've also got a topic sentence stem. In the play's prologue, Euripides constructs the gods as fickle and capricious, ultimately in command of the fate of Troy and its citizens. So far, so good. Who are we going to talk about? Poseidon and Athena at the beginning of the play. Athena's change of support from the Greeks to the Trojans for pretty much no reason at all. I mean, a small reason, but not enough to really think it would be influential to a god. And the fact that Euripides suggests that the gods and their worshippers suffer the same selfish afflictions as each other, and therefore the playwright portrays those who are divine as flawed, guilty, and worthy of criticism. I think one thing that we could possibly add to this section is the fact that the Trojan women, especially Hecuba, despite the fact that the gods have so clearly betrayed them, they still bother to give Astyanax his proper burial rites, which is them trying to, I suppose, appease the gods for Astyanax's body. And the fact that they're following on with this tradition, even though the gods have abandoned them, just shows how connected they still feel to the deities that they've worshipped. So I'm just going to write a little note about that now. Just added that little point there, and also the note that because they're following so blindly, Euripides may be criticizing such blind faith. So that's another little point that we could make in our body paragraph number 1. Now on to body paragraph number 2. And again, I'm just going to steal from the Women of Troy booklet. So here it is. The women argue amongst themselves. Let's grab that. Copy. And then in my document, paste. Okay. So here we got our topic sentence. Euripides constructs the exchanges between the women to reveal the complex nature of loss and asserts that accusation fails to alleviate sorrow. So basically, blaming someone else for your position doesn't make you feel better. That's something that this play does really, really well. We're going to talk about the interaction between Hecuba and Andromache, and we're going to talk about the fact that in times of war, it's often the survivors who have very little control over their lives, while at least the dead no longer can suffer. So he seems to be saying that to be dead in a wartime situation is almost preferable to being alive. That's kind of the takeaway that we can get from the interactions between these women, and it's pretty depressing, I think. Someone that we haven't mentioned so far in this plan is crazy old Cassandra, and I think we can make a pretty good note about her if we think about the things that she says in her sort of God-crazed ecstasy. and the fact that she finds solace in the nobility of the deaths that the Trojans have encountered. So I'm just going to make a little note on that now. Okay, so I've just added that note there. Cassandra finds solace in the nobility of death afforded to the Trojans. Perhaps it's better to die with your head held high than to kill like a coward and be far away from your family and your home, as the Greeks are. All right, now on to body paragraph number 3. Once again, I'm going to go into the Women of Troy practice booklet. I'm going to just steal, copy, and paste. And this one is all about the desires of the men in the play and how they result in suffering. So the topic sentence here, the fate of the women and the oppressive society in which they newly inhabit is rendered as being hostage to the rapaciousness of men. My goodness gracious, what does that word mean? Let's have a look. I'm going to copy it. We're going to go onto the internet, and then we're going to define, if I can spell define correctly, define rapaciousness. And that means having or showing a strong or excessive desire to acquire money or to possess things, in this case, women. Greedy, dishonest, all these bad adjectives to describe these men. The rapaciousness of men. So, who are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Paris and his lust for Helen and how that led to her being taken away from Greece, which triggered the whole thing. We're going to talk about Ajax and Agamemnon's lust, resulting in the rape and enslavement of Cassandra, and the retribution from the goddess Athena later on. And we're also going to talk about Menelaus' lust for killing Helen, and also Agamemnon's for power, resulting in the overall sack of Troy. And it's also implied in the play that even Zeus himself is a slave to Aphrodite, the god of sexuality. But someone that we haven't mentioned really yet in this little sentence, this little section, is our good friend Talthybius, and how he contributes to the suffering of the women of Troy, because he certainly does. So I think that we can talk about how Talthybius, even though he shows regret for the actions that he has to perform, the fact that he does them anyway speaks to his blind faith in the leaders that he follows, the Greeks, the men that he takes orders from, and the fact that he's able to do these terrible things to the women of Troy makes him just as guilty as those in charge. So I'm going to write a little note about that right now. So I've just added that note there about Talthybius, and we're going to finish off with our paragraph about the nature of war. And this is kind of the tricky one. This is the one that students tend to think, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll cut that one. I don't really get it. But this is really the one that you should focus on a lot, because it's what's going to put you over the top of other people writing essays on women of Troy. If you talk about how Euripides manipulates the genre conventions of tragedy to make his play more effective, then you're going to show that you have, one, a very deep knowledge of the play, and two, you have a fantastic knowledge of the meta language used to describe the play. So let's see, the senselessness of war. Ultimately, Euripides manipulates genre conventions to underscore the indiscriminate and disordered nature of suffering as a result of war. So overall, the play sort of doesn't really blame anyone in particular. It kind of says that trying to blame someone for the suffering caused by war is a bit of a foolish endeavor. It's better to just avoid war in the first place. So I'm going to make a little note about that, and then afterwards I'm going to find some information from a sample paragraph that I'm going to put in for our plan for body paragraph number 4. Okay, so I've just written a note there, and now to find out information about the senselessness of war, we need to go to a very specific spot in the Women of Troy booklet. So we need to go to the Anatomy of Tragedy table, because that's going to give us the vocabulary that we need. So I'm going to open up the Women of Troy booklet. I'm going to scroll right up to the top, and let's see if we can find it. Here we are, Anatomy of a Tragedy vocabulary table on page 16. Let's go there. Here we are. So what this table gives us is a whole lot of different words that form part of typical tragic plays, what those words mean, and whether or not those terms are actually in Women of Troy. So for example, looking at this word here, anagnorisis, which means the moment when the main character recognizes the true nature of their situation, like when they realize that something is not quite right. For example, last year when Jason realizes that Medea has killed her children, that kind of sudden realization moment, it doesn't really happen in Women of Troy. So the women kind of know that their situation is bad before the play even starts. There's no sudden moment of tragic realization for them. And we've got all these different words here in this play to describe whether or not they're in Women of Troy, and we've got here a sample paragraph as well. And I'm going to steal a couple of sentences from this sample paragraph to put in my plan. I'm going to steal this one. So by employing or by using Deus Machina so early in Women of Troy, Euripides denies his audience any chance at catharsis. This, combined with the absence of an Aristotelian tragic hero, nor any key moment of peripeteia or anagnorisis, distinguishes the play from the cathartic conventions of tragedy. And if you're thinking, those words don't make any sense, Mr. Cray, what are you talking about? Then you should read this table. It's going to tell you everything you need to know about those words, because if you can use them intelligently in an essay, you're going to score very, very, very well. So let's just put that sentence in, and let's make it the same font, because I know that that annoys some of you. Okay, so there we go. We've got what I think is a pretty good plan. We've got our body paragraph 1 about the gods, body paragraph 2 about the women, body paragraph 3 about the men, and body paragraph 4 about the senselessness of war. And we're going to use that plan to answer this prompt. It's the innocent and powerless who are most affected by events in Trojan Women. Do you agree? Okay, so in the next video, we're going to go into a bit more detail about how we actually go about constructing one of these body paragraphs, including quote integration. But until then, good luck, and I will see you later.